Every book has flaws, whether it's the best book you've ever read or the worst. You can always find a few things that don't sit perfectly well with you and you think, that could have been done better, or I might have changed that. The question is whether books highs high enough for those flaws to get smaller and smaller and smaller to the point that they're insignificant and you just don't care anymore because the rest of the book is so damn good. That applies to this book, The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, the second book in the Mistborn Trilogy. The highs in this book was so high that the flaws basically disappeared for me. I love this book. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, it's Christian from Lost in Discovery. Let's talk about The Well of Ascension. If you have not read any Mistborn books, please leave the video now. I don't want to spoil anything for you. If you want to know if you should get into the series, I'll link my review for book 1 below. So this discussion is going to be split in two sections. The first section will be talking about this book if you've read The Final Empire. The second part will be spoilers for The Well of Ascension. And the third part will be my prediction for the third book, The Hero of Ages. Okay, so if you're still watching the video, I'm assuming you have at least read The Final Empire, which is the first book in the Mistborn Trilogy. You have been warned. So when I finished The Final Empire, we dealt with the loss of Kelsier. They had overthrown the Lord Ruler, and it felt like a complete story in many ways. What kept me hanging was the Lord Ruler kind of saying, guys, you don't know what you've just unleashed upon the world by killing me. And this big question mark is what got me excited for Well of Ascension, though I didn't know in what direction the story would go whatsoever. I had no idea where the hell the story would go from this point on, because like the crew, like the people in the story, I kind of thought Kelsier was the be-all, end-all of this thing, even though, of course, there's so much more going on. But I was sucked in, and I was invested to a point that I felt emptiness afterwards, where it's like, what's the point? Which, funny enough, many characters have the same feeling as I did in this story. What is there to expect in The Well of Ascension? If you ever wanted to see a Mistborn in their full potential, absolutely peaking on the abilities they can do and the destruction and the awesomeness that can occur, you will get that in The Well of Ascension. I think Brandon Sanderson took the fight scenes and the action scenes up to the next level in this story, far surpassing those in the first book. These scenes were crazy. The amount of action, well, I won't say the amount of action, but when the action does hit, it is mesmerizing. It is incredible to see what characters with allomatic powers can really do if pushed to their fullest potential. Now, the tone kind of shifts a little bit in this. In the first book, we're kind of with Vin and we're growing and we're seeing, or we're discovering the world, we're discovering the magic all with her. And it's kind of a slow build to a point where we're going to take on the bad guy, followed by the heavy loss. This book, the direction isn't so clear right at the start. It's a much slower build. And I've heard a lot of people have problems with the slower pacing of this book. I had no problems with it. It definitely is slower, but it's not disinteresting. It is incredibly interesting, and Sanderson does that in a few ways. The main way I think he does this is through building mystery. There are about 3 or 4 key, massive mysteries throughout this story, and basically all of them, bar maybe one, is wrapped up completely, and you get such satisfaction in watching them unfold. This book is a very political book. We're following Elend as the king of Luthadel and him trying to kind of create democracy as we know it today. I've seen politics done much better in fantasy in a much more kind of interesting way in A Song of Ice and Fire. That's not to say that this wasn't still really good. I was completely invested in what was going on. I enjoyed seeing him trying to get people on the same page, his struggle with following his morals versus the frustration of becoming a king that can actually get what he wants done. Yeah, so that internal struggle was good, but in terms of like politicking with other factions and other people who are interested in ruling Luthadel, sometimes it got a little exposition heavy on what each army was doing, reminding you what were their goals, what were their ambitions, what would happen if they do this. They really kind of verbalize all their thoughts to an extent that can be a little bit much, but not. That's kind of me trying to look for a flaw, if I'm going to be honest. Now, I can't go into it too much, but there are some, I would say there's about 3 new characters that really steal the spotlight in this next book that you have to look forward to as well. As for the characters you know from the Final Empire, the crew, Ham, Breeze, Clubs, all of these guys get much more page time and you get a much better understanding of who they are as people. I thought the time with them was kind of lacking in the Final Empire, and I understand that choice. There wasn't really time to delve into them more, but with the loss of Kelsier, it's the perfect time to get into their heads and have them have more page time and see their relationship with Vin and how they grow and what their ambitions are like. What are their backstories? That was so awesome to get more about them throughout the second book. In the first book, I didn't really have an attachment to any of those guys too much. My friends would ask me, oh, who's your favorite crew member of Kelsier's crew? And I'm like, I don't really know them besides like what their key ability is in Allomancy. So yeah, now it's very easy to say who my favorite crew member is because I understand who they are as people more than just what kind of cool magic can they do. Now, I mentioned that one of my favorite characters in the first book was Sazed, and he absolutely shines in this book. If you enjoyed him in The Final Empire, man, you are in for a treat. In many ways, this is Sazed's like book. I can't really say because I haven't read the last one, but I feel like he truly, truly shines in this book along with the rest of the cast. So look, just to wrap up my thoughts, my non-spoilery thoughts, this book delivers for me everything you'd want in a sequel. The stakes are raised higher, the action is more impactful, the exploration of the characters is deeper. Sanderson hits you in the gut, he twists and turns you throughout the story, and I loved every minute of it. So if you read book 1 and enjoyed it, you're going to love book 2, there is no question about it. I feel like it improves in basically every aspect of its predecessor, so you can't go wrong. It is a little bit slower, but the payoff, it is a huge payoff. I can't even get into it, but it's a massive payoff. All right, let's just move straight on to spoilery talk. I'm assuming you have read this book, and probably some of you watching have read more than this book, so you're probably going to laugh at some of the things I'll say, because I might be completely off in what I'm talking about here. Okay, so we were teased with a twist that there is a Kandra amongst the crew. And I was like, you know what? I've read a bit more now. I'm a bit older. I'm a bit more mature. I'm with it. You know, I'm going to figure out who this imposter is. I'm absolutely going to beat Brandon to the punchline. No, I stood no chance with this. I had no idea that it was going to be Orsia. Well, that it was going to be Tensoon as Orsia. Man, first of all, Vin having the Kandra take on the form of a wolf was just badass, man. Like, small girl with crazy powers, next to her is a massive wolf. Like, this is like fantasy 101 of awesomeness. And part of me was like, oh, we're doing the typical like talking animal companion here. But it's just the way it's constructed that makes it so much more interesting. Because you know about who the Kandra are and what they have to do to kind of take on their body, the contract, the lore behind it, how they kind of consume the bones and learn how to maneuver and learn the person they're kind of taking the identity of. It just makes it better. It's like fantasy tropes that you know, but done in an interesting, fresh way, in my opinion. So look, that twist was fan-bloody-tastic, and their relationship, Vin's relationship with him, was incredible. I loved how he started to see the similarities between himself and Vin, and he started to trust her more. And when it came down to it, her final standoff with Zane and him saving her was a massive moment, was a massive, huge payoff that he betrayed his contract for. They keep saying the contract, the contract, the contract. He was such a humorous, interesting, and great character, and he kind of had his last moment helping to save Vin and kind of securing that character development that you wanted to see. Brandon does this so much. He gives you like, he teases you with like, you want this to happen, you want this big thing, this kind of breakthrough in a character happen, and 9 times out of 10, he just delivers on it. And when he doesn't deliver on it, it's kind of for a purpose to make you think and consider it in a new way. So man, he just does character so well. So speaking of this scene with Zane, let's talk about Zane a little bit. So I was interested, like, who is this guy sparring with Vin? Who is this Mistborn? And then he kind of drops the bomb that he's Ellen's half brother. And I was just like, oh God, where it's going to be a love triangle. It's going to be a love triangle. And it kind of is, but it doesn't like fully lean into it in a way that it detracts. This was like my most like walking on the edge of like, do I not like this in the book? The whole Zane character. Him as a character, I freaking loved. I loved that he had this voice in his head. I love that he considered himself crazy. I love that he's trying to always like poison his dad, and it's like this Tom and Jerry back and forth like, hey dad, just poisoned you, might want to check that out real quick. Straff is just kind of always teasing him with ADM. This like kind of back and forth was almost comical, but in a way that just really worked for me. I don't know if you've seen my Stormlight Archive videos, but I say the character Sadeas is straight from Game of Thrones. I think Zane is straight from anime, dude. Like, this guy is so dramatic. He's like an emo anime character. Like, it did sometimes get a little tiresome when he kept going to Finn, like, Ellen doesn't understand you. Like, I understand you. You need to come with me. You need to save me and all this stuff. It was getting to the point where it was starting to tire me out a little bit, but as soon as it was, there was payoff for it, and it kind of went into a way. I think Vin needed to question herself, and there was this voice that was needed to add to that, to make her question it even more. Like, this is part of growing up, especially if you're in your first relationship. Sometimes when you hear voices making you question things, you really do dwell on it quite a bit, and it makes sense that Vin would spend a lot of time thinking and considering what Zane had to offer her. And I liked how Zane kind of pulled her into this darker direction, and when we get that massacre that she does at Set's palace, my god, when she rips through like 300 people and kills them in the most gruesome ways, man. I love that Sanderson was not afraid to take Vin in a darker direction and to show you the atrocities that a full-blown Mistborn could partake in. Let's move on to some of my favorite moments. Like, I've gotten all the gripes out of the way, like I'm done with those. Let's just gush. Enjoy me freaking out about this book. Okay, when I went to Sanderson, everyone's like, he's amazing, but he's a bit PG-13. He can be a bit tame. Whereas we know you like Game of Thrones, you like a good beheading or two. And I will say, I do in my stories. I do. I like a bit of blood. I don't know what they were talking about in terms of Mistborn, because Vin headbutting that dude's face off, like his head off, was something else. And it's not just like, because it's cool that it exploded, whatever. It was just like the way it was done, how you knew that she pushed for that new aromatic metal, can't remember the name of it, and she just freaking headbutts that dude out of existence. And it's not just the violence for violence's sake, it's a character moment, because when Ellen sees this, he is like beyond shocked Pikachu face. He is like, he cannot cope. And when she goes to kind of touch him and he like twitches away from her, oh man, that just broke my heart, man. It's like, yeah, dude, your girl's a badass. You better get used to it. Like, these are the stakes this is what's at play here, man. Like, you needed to see it at some point or another. And just the visual of Vin in her white dress covered in blood, man. Like, yeah. And like, okay, just bear with me for a second. When she's like, oh, I'm going to punch this guy, but he's, you know, burning, I'm forgetting all the metals, but he's burning something to make him more dense. Like, we're just going to cancel each other out and it's going to be a normal punch. She's like, no, I need to be much more strategic than that. And she like uses her fingers to like pop his eye. Ooh, it's good. It's good. Okay, let's move on to the final battle. I made a text post on Reddit just gushing about how much the final battle just hit right to me. Some battles just hit all the beats you want so perfectly. The Battle of Helm's Deep, the Battle of Blackwater Bay, the Battle of Thaylen City. Like, these battles are just amazing. And I'm going to add the last battle, the standoff at Luthadel, to this amazing list of which there's probably many more that I'm just forgetting right now. But this is up there with the best in my opinion. Seeing the struggle of Vin getting back just in time, seeing Sazed turn into the freaking Hulk. One of my favorite moments was when he finally like kind of builds himself up. He's like 12 feet tall and he punches that Kolos in the head. He thinks to himself like, say something brave. And he's just like, fight! And they all run in. I'm like, these are the moments, man. These are the hype moments that I live for. Sanderson was not afraid to make us have some losses in this battle, man. We lost clubs, we lost Doxson, and the deaths were just brutal. They were just like, you know what? they don't stand a chance. And we needed those hits throughout this section to make the highs hit so high. I'm not over Straff kind of leaving his tent, looking up to the sky, and there is Vin falling down like bloody Levi from Attack on Titan and just slicing him and his poor horse in half in one blow. Like, did he deserve a death that freaking awesome? I don't know, man, but like, yeah, these are the moments I'm talking about. Like, what the hell? Like, why didn't people make me read this earlier in my life? I want to talk about my favorite new character added into the mix in this story, and that is Tindwyl. Now, I thought she was such a good kind of yin to Sazed's yang, and it was cool seeing a female terrorism and how she was trying to make Elend grow into a king who needs to be hard and needs to be authoritative, and kind of make him grow as a person instead of being like this disheveled kind of quirky book guy. And that was cool, and I liked seeing her softer side with Vin, because she knows Vin's been damaged and Vin's had a hard life and she needs to be kind of softened as a person. It was cool seeing how Tindwyl could kind of understand what people needed to an extent and kind of push them in that direction. We've all had that person in our lives that might know better for us and might treat us in a way that's kind of harder, but you sometimes need it. You sometimes need it. And I love that Tindwyl kind of filled that role in the story. Let's move on quickly to relationships in Mistborn so far. Okay, I love the relationships in this book, and I'm talking about romantic relationships. I think Vin and Elend are fantastically like healthy and respect each other and show trust for each other, at least by the end on Vin's part. And I like the mutual respect between Sazed and Tindwyl, and him losing her ripped my bloody heart out. But I will say that the actual interactions between them, like the chemistry isn't all that palpable and all that strong. Like, it's there, but it's like not at the level where I'm like, man, these guys are lovebirds, or man, these guys are absolutely perfect and have so much chemistry between each other. Like, their internal thoughts about their loved ones are fantastic, and it's like, wow, these people are so great. They're so well balanced and healthy in their thoughts of their relationship, like, once they're established. But yeah, the on-screen chemistry could use a bit of work. Like, I didn't feel it as much as I probably wanted to. I definitely felt Sazed's loss though. That was tough. Beyond all the epic action and hype moments, I loved the whole twist about the Well of Ascension. I love that we're teased with the twist, like on the first page, like how anything not etched in metal cannot be trusted, and they're taking rubbings, and the text is being altered to provide a false prophecy so we can free whatever's in the well. Fantastic, 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 amazing twist, and amazing setup for the Hero of Ages. Like, man, I don't know if I can take a week off between reading the next book. I think I've just got to go right into it. Okay, let's move on to my section talking about my theories for the Hero of Ages. Now, you guys, thanks to being such an amazing community, have not spoiled me on anything Mistborn or Cosme related. So you get to laugh at if my theories are on point or completely wrong and out there. So I believe that all Inquisitors are controlled by some sort of higher power or deity or god. Now, we know that Marshall was conflicted towards the end about what he had to do with Sazed. I'm guessing he was being controlled in some way. The reason I think that is because Zane had a spike in him, right? Similar to an Inquisitor, and he had that voice in his head. And I'm assuming that is the thing that is controlling all the Inquisitors to some extent, or the greater extent of what's going on, and plays into what Vin released in the Well of Ascension. Potentially. I know some parts of that must be onto something, right? Maybe not exactly those three things together, but I'm onto something, right? Right? Okay, it pains me to say it. It really does, and it sucks. It's gonna suck. But I'm 90% sure Elend's gonna bite the dust. Elend is gonna die in the next book, right? Because Vin lost Kelsier, her father figure, the guy who pulled her out of the hellhole she was in. Then she fell in love with Elend, an all-round good guy, very caring, very accepting, very trusting, now full-blown Mistborn. he's gonna make an ultimate sacrifice in the name of Luthadel, in the name of democracy, in the name of Vin, in the name of what he believes is important. And I can see him dying in the last book, and it's gonna kill me, but I believe he's gone. I just think Sandor is gonna punch me in the gut and leave me on the ground by the end of this. The next one I want to talk about is the Terrorsmen and Sazed in general. Sazed has lost his faith, more or less, by the end of this book. He has lost Tindwyl, he has lost his beliefs of all the religions he's been following, because he can see how much they can be twisted and turned against you, right? So I think he's going to be off doing his own thing in this last book. He's going to be away from the gang. He's going to be going through his mental struggle and like kind of building himself up again, with a last minute turnaround of potentially saving the day / sacrificing himself. But my thoughts on the Terrorsmen in general, I noticed that Sazed has a quirk. He always ends his sentences with saying, I think. And then I noticed Tindwyl ends her sentences by saying, I think. And then I saw Elend run into those Terrorsmen, and they all ended their sentences with, I think. Now, I think that, is this a potential thing similar to how the Inquisitors are potentially being controlled by a higher power? Or is this just a quirk of Terrorsmen where it's like they're subservient, right? So they serve people and they're like, don't want to be too strong in their opinion, so they soften it with like an I think, or I suggest, or I think. So like, yeah, I'm going to throw it out there, because if I'm right, that's pretty cool. But I'm probably extremely wrong, and it's just like a quirk of like their type of personality, and trying to be like very neutral and chill and not cause too many waves, you know? So yeah. Okay, theory section over. I'm going to wrap up this video. I don't want to take too much more of your time. That probably went on for too long. I'm yet to edit it. But yeah, I missed a lot of probably what I wanted to talk about. Hang out with me down in the comments. We'll talk about all those things I missed. If you did enjoy, please do subscribe and stick around, especially if you're a Stormlight fan. You definitely want to stick around. Every Saturday I'm making a video about the Stormlight Archive in preparation for Rhythm of War. If not though, I'm making lots of fantasy content, mainly Brandon Sanderson at the moment, so please do stick around if you did enjoy. I hope you're all well, and thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you all in the next one tomorrow. Bye guys.